ones are not purified. They're still mercantile man, even though they go to temples to make a show of being devotees. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. Only when one is fully freed from material desires can one be purified. And only in that purified state can one serve the Lord. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. This is the pure devotional platform. I'll just read the translation again. Otherwise, O my Lord, O Supreme Instructor of the entire world, you are so kind to your devotee that you could not induce him to do something unbeneficial for him. On the other hand, one who desires some material benefit in exchange for devotional service cannot be your pure devotee. Indeed, he's no better than a merchant who wants profit in exchange of service. Amayanati mirandasya ginanjana shalakaya chakshu militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadam Dikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savudatam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaitam Surato Pango Mama Manda Mate Gati Matsavasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Vanchakalpa Tariveshcha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langate girim yakripa namaham vande Shri Gurum dinataranam. Namom Vishnu padaya Krishna prashtaya bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Miti Namane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Marvo Marvo Vachi Marvo Mariri Smaranti Saravaha Sarve Sarvakarishu Madhavam. Okay, good morning, everybody. And first of all, I'd like to wish you all a happy Gopashtami. You all know it's Gopashtami today. We'll talk about that later. This first verse of where it's a chapter on Prahlad, the best among exalted devotees. Just putting it mildly, okay. I'm just going to condense what Prabhupada has actually explained in the purport for a pure devotee. Prabhupada said, and this is recorded, that a pure devotee receives material wealth for the service of the Lord, not because of pious activity. Pure devotees, in this purport, he calls Anya Bilashita Shunyam, and a person that has no desire for material profit. So you don't actually go to God and start bargaining. If I do this and that, you give me this and that. I know it happens quite naturally. I know because I have a lot of friends who tell me that if they strike out a bargain with God. They say, if you look, if next month I can, make such and such a profit on the sale of, I don't know, maybe garam masala, for example, I will give you, 20%, and they do, and they actually make this profit, and they go to the temple and they leave 20% of, the profit, and it does function like that. I mean, God is really kind. I mean, but you have to understand that actually God doesn't give you what you want; He gives you what you need. Okay. If you need that, because when he gives you something and you think it's a materially good deal, you think that he's given you what you want. It's actually what you need because it's there to encourage you. Okay, as you all probably know, that the Vedas is basically two teams playing: the material side and the spiritual side. Okay, the spiritual side like all truths are very painful and very, very bitter as a medicine to swallow. So the material side is actually that sugar, lump of sugar that you put in your mouth, and then you take your medicine. Okay. Now, Prabhupada goes on to condense that. In fact, he says God supplies whatever a devotee needs, not what he wants. Yeah. And the mercantile mentality actually offers, by offering a little flower and fruit in exchange for material benefit, is not quite a pure devotee. But if done with pure devotion, or with Krishna will accept it and is quite happy with it. So Prabhupada says that to be purified and serve, one has to be free from material desires. Okay, temple. Shishi Koranitai, my Posashi Ki. Right. What is the greatest impediment that we have of being a pure devotee? What actually what's the obstacle that really stops us? Does anybody know? Yeah? Yeah, we don't desires, yes, but desires can also be spiritual, can't they? I mean, like if you say, hey? Could be. Well, there are two things I think Prabhupada and many of our acharyas have pointed out that first of all, the Arjuna actually points out that the mind is a big obstacle because he says in the 6:30, Chanchalahi Mana Krishna Pramati Balavadridam Tasyamham Nigraham Manye Vayo Iva Sudushkaram. He says that mind is incredibly strong, stubborn, and whimsical. It's like a whirlwind between your ears. There is it has been proven scientifically that we have 90,000 thoughts flying through our heads. So that's like you playing ping pong with yourself in your head. Okay, this keeps flying 90,000 times. And so if you imagine how difficult it is to control you in all your senses, and you actually the control center of all your senses and your desires is actually here inside this special black box. So what's this purified state that we talk about here? To be a pure devotee is not to be some hot, Wall Street investor. You think, well, if I put so much into God, I will get so much in return. What the real return you want to get is your spiritual advancement, not about something, a new car or I don't know, new clothes, whatever, material. And that purified state is when you can actually stand spiritually naked, divested of all your material desires. The other thing that was pointed out by Prabhupada in one of his lessons is that, and I can't remember what it is, but the thing that actually we must always do, and that is mentioned in the Shishik Shastaka, the third one, Srimad Bhagavatam, humility. Without which you would never advance spiritually, and you would be impeded. Because once you think I am a devotee, you are really in trouble. It's you playing an agent of Maya. You're deluding yourself. You're telling yourself, well, or you're telling yourself that, and you're convinced that you are already perfect. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing more to, no more mountain to climb. Well, my fellow devotees, we've been here so long. That's why we're still here. And in this material, as I said before in another lesson, that we are material junkies, and we're really hooked on the material world, and That's when you start thinking that everything is already perfect, that you're a devotee, you should always remember a very famous song in the 1970s by the Carpenters, American group, brother and sister group. The song is "We've Only Just Begun." Okay, we've only just begun, but you're going in the right direction, and Krishna will help you along as long as you try and walk that path that you already begun. If we sit at home and we look at our library of 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1 Bhagavad Gita by Srila Prabhupada, Upanishad, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that doesn't mean you're a pure devotee. You really are. Those are your stepping blocks going higher in your spiritual life, and they are just helps. There is a famous Sufi saying that you can purify your body by fasting. Okay, you can purify your mind by meditation, maybe I say, and you can purify your heart and your soul through love. The mind is not, as I already mentioned, not too easy to purify unless you do a few things that are recommended to you. We usually say, I think, is it Guru Shastra Sangha, Sadhu, which is Sadhu Sangha. So you need a spiritual master to guide you. You need to read Shastra. And it's all been made easy by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada has made it just like when you want to buy furniture and you want to assemble it yourself, you go to IKEA. So ISKCON is like a little IKEA, spiritual IKEA. You got all these books that teach you how to do it, in an easy way. So reading is purifying, because Prabhupada once told his disciple that every letter in all these books is Krishna, okay, or God, if you prefer. So every time you read, it's very purifying. And Sangha, which is association with sadhus, so other people who have the same aspirations spiritually, and even spiritual ambition. And I'm not talking about getting promoted. I'm talking about promoting yourself spiritually and advancing in your spiritual life. That is very important, because there's an English saying that you can tell a man by the company he keeps. Okay, you can see even in the animal world, birds stick with birds, and lions with lions, etc. So if you stick with your kind in spiritually, then you will not go wrong. You can't live a double life of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You can't say, one day I'll go to the temple, next day I'll go down the pub. I mean, that's not just it's just not on. It just cannot be done. You become spiritually schizophrenic at the end of the day, and be really confused, and then you really fall, because you get pulled away from spiritual life, because it would appear too tough for you. We must remember. I think Mahatma Das Prabhu, who's a guru, he once said that every sinner has a future, every saint has a past. So there is always hope for all of us, every single person. But just remember, once you're in spiritual life, as I said, don't consider yourself a devotee. You should always consider yourself in a famous accounting terminology, a WIP, work in progress. Okay, because as long as you're in this material world, you can never be perfect. You're moving towards perfection. You're on the right road, so don't veer from it. Don't think, well, I'm there already. It's you don't think when you become a devotee of Krishna, you're driving along in a Ferrari. You're not. The Ferrari can break down as well, whether it's a Ferrari or I don't know cars very much. I know Ferrari because it's a racing car. What's a cheap car? Honda. Because when I was a child, there was a Morris Minor. It doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, that's it. It doesn't matter what you drive. This body is a car to take you from A to B in this life. It's a journey. Yeah. If you like, you know, like I like classical music. There is a famous composition by my favorite composer, J.S. Johann Sebastian Bach, called the Well-Tempered Clavier, and this is considered one of the perfections in classical music. Why? Because Bach, and I asked my guru this, was it okay to listen to him? He said it was fine, because Bach actually composed only for the church, so he had a spiritual motive for composing. He was never like a rich composer or anything. He just wrote for the church because he felt it was the right thing. Well, the thing is that the Well-Tempered Clavier is considered a very difficult piece to play, because it's actually based on 24. If you know the keyboard, okay, it's based on 24 major and minor keys on the keyboard. That's that's quite complex. And so all the prelude and fugues that he composed in its complete entirety on the keyboard. So you can imagine how difficult that is to play. He actually wrote another one which I thought was more difficult, called the Goldberg Variations, for his student Goldberg. It was to train him, to discipline him. So you must understand that you mustn't just look at yourself, the words in anything, because words can be also deceiving if you read them in a wrong, how do you call it, sentence. You have to think, where are the punctuation marks, etc., because then you get a perfect understanding of what you're reading. Now, Krishna tells us, I know in the sixth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is very interesting, because he says, Atmaiva Hyatmano Bandhu and Atmaiva Ripu Atmana. What it says is that the mind can be your best friend and it can be your worst enemy. Okay, so this is the mind that we have. It can be a best friend if you actually hanker after something spiritual and think about Krishna all the time. But if you hanker about material things, it just takes you away from Krishna. It's like, the reason why we're here is that we turn our backs to God, and we're walking down this road that we think is the best road for us, and you get worse. Because why? Because the shadow that you're watching is your own shadow growing longer, and you think, wow, I'm getting really big, I'm getting bigger. In fact, you're not really. It's all pure illusion. Now, as I said before, the what do you call it? Arjuna actually mentions about how the mind is so fickle and so strong and so stubborn. What does Krishna say? Krishna replies immediately in chapter 6, text 35. He says, Abhyasena tu konteya vairagena cha griyate. It can be controlled. You just need to practice and detachment. As I already mentioned, that the only way to practice is by bhakti yoga, devotional service. Why? Because when you practice bhakti yoga, whether you're serving in a temple or doing something even not glamorous, like cutting vegetables for the kitchen, that service actually takes your mind away from all the material world. For that moment, you're actually traveling in another plane, and that is so important, because you actually are giving your mind spiritual gymnastics to build your spiritual muscularity. Detachment comes when you actually follow Prahlad's instructions in chapter 5, Shravanam Kirtanam, etc., Vishnu Smaranam. Listening and to pure devotees talk about Krishna is purifying for you. and for the reader as well. This is what I've come up with this, because I also need to talk about Gopashtami to you, my favorite subject. No, I'm joking. Yes, I do like. So that any questions on that chapter, the verse we just read, about pure devotional service? No? Okay, we can move on to Gopashtami. Right. First of all, who knows what Gopashtami is? It is when very famous god Krishna. It's a ceremony where Nanda Maharaj performs for Krishna to move from his Kumara age, when he's a little infant, to which is when he was just herding the calves, the little baby cows, to Pauganda. So he gets promoted in the eyes of the village of Vrindavan to become a full-fledged cowherd boy. It's a very, very, very interesting ceremony. I think they got this stuff here as well. That's really small. Yeah, and what is interesting was that it's usually for boys only, right? So our spiritual mother, Radharani or Radhika, who I always believe is the personification of Krishna's love for all of us. Anyway, she and her Sakhis want to attend this ceremony, because girls are never present in this ceremony. So what do they do? Do you know what do they do? Well, Srimati Radharani actually has about the same looks as Subala, the Saka, good friend of Krishna. So she dresses in a dhoti and puts on a turban, which we're all supposed to do today, and attends this ceremony that Nanda Maharaj is presiding over, to give Krishna the responsibility of being a full-fledged cowherd boy. Now, what do we do today? We worship the cows. How do you worship the cows? You do what? Go puja. Yeah. What do you do in the go puja? You beat the cow? No, you don't. What? Yeah. Okay. You put kukuma and flour on your hands and you put your mark on the cow. You done this before? You haven't done this before? I suggest you got 2 alpacas. You can find a couple of sticks, put them horns on there. Go to the kitchen and get some turmeric. We can give them a hell of a time. I done it many times. It's fun. It's really fun. And then you after you do the worship, you should actually listen to older devotees discuss about the glories of the cow. Yeah. And then someone, in this case, Nanda Maharaj, who's the presiding leader of this of the village, or in our case, a temple, would perform a yagya, say a fire ceremony, and then you serve a big feast near the Goshala, so that everybody can enjoy, and talk about the cow. I usually in a Gopashtami, I don't have my book here, but I read the Gavopanishad. There are 108 Upanishads, right? And some of them are new, some of them are so old you can't imagine. Okay. Anyway, as you know, the Upanishads are Vedanta, so they are the conclusions of the Vedas, and the Gavopanishad has got 21 shlokas, and every year I read this book when I'm not here. But I'm here this year. Anyway, so my favorite verse, I think, is the 3rd verse. It says, Gava Bhutam Cha Bhavya Cha, Gava Pushti Sanatani, Gava Lakshma Stata Mula, Gonu Datam Nachati. What does it mean? It translated from Sanskrit. The cow is the past and the future. Okay. Now, she nourishes the health of all living entities. She is the root, Mula, of all prosperity, Lakshma. And the piety that one achieves from feeding the cow is never lost. So during this ceremony of worshipping the cow, we actually feed. Everybody takes a handful of grass or hay and give it to the cow. When I had a cow in Villa Vrindavan in Italy, her name was Kamadenu. She was very particular. She liked fruit best than grass. So I always bring her a melon or apple. She loved apples. Yeah. And you mustn't stand too close because, when they crush the melon, you get a face full of juice in your face. And the mouth of the cow is not considered clean. Okay, where all the saliva is. Every part else is very clean. You know that the Srimad Bhagavatam itself is full of things that talk to you about cows. Prabhupada explains how important it is to protect cows. In the third canto, chapter 16, text 10, Krishna actually says that the three important persons in his, which he considers to be his very own body, are brahmanas, cows, and defenseless creatures. So all other living beings. So it includes, elderly people, women, and children. Yeah. So that's how important the cows are. They're on the same level. Now, so that's the Gopashtami. Today is actually the disappearance day of three very elevated people. One is oh, why is it got only two here? I've got three people. Three, yeah. This is I got short form, so I don't want to read this because it might be boring. The first one is the disappearance day when people leave this world. Is Sri Dhananjaya Pandita. You know what Pandita is, don't you? That's when you think you're very clever. No. Right. This Sri Dhananjaya Pandita. Where have you seen this name before, Dhananjaya? It's Arjuna's name in the Gita. Krishna calls him Dhananjaya. Okay. Right. So this Sri Dhananjaya Pandita was actually Nityananda Prabhu's dear servant. He was very renowned and he had full of love for Krishna. And he appeared in a place called Jagram? Yeah. He says here. Oh, this one is different from what I know. Okay. Anyway, I'll just read you what he said. He was a resident in the village of Katva named Sitala, and he was one of the 12 Gopalas, cowherd friends of Lord Nityananda, formerly known as Vasudama. For some time, Dhananjaya Pandita was in a Sankirtan party under the direction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he went to Vrindavan. And before going to Vrindavan, he lived for some time in a village called Sanchada Panchada. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? No. Sometimes this village was also known as the place of Dhananjaya Pata. After some time, he left the responsibility of worship with a disciple and went back to Vrindavan. After returning to Vrindavan to Sitala Gram, he established a deity of Gorasundara in the temple. Descendants of Pandit Dhananjaya still live in Sitalagram and look after the temple workshop. Right, that's the other personality who left today is Sri Gadadhara Dasa Goswami, an eternal associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He first lived in where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, and upon the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he moved to a village on the banks of the Ganges. And what do they have here on him? Wow, this is a long one. Yeah. Well, I didn't want to read all this. So, anyway, yeah. There's a story once when he was returning from Bengal, Sri Gadadhar Goswami. This is funny, from Jagannath Puri with Nityananda Prabhu. He forgot himself and began talking very loudly as if he were a girl of Rajabhumi selling yogurt. After another time, while absorbed in the ecstasy of the gopis, he carried a jug filled with Ganges water on his head as if he were selling milk. Wow, this guy's really elevated. When Lord Chaitanya appeared in the house of Raghava Pandit while going to Vrindavan, Gadadhara went to see him. And Mahaprabhu was so glad that he put his foot on his head. This is just one of the few stories that... and it says here, Gadadhara Goswami is a united form of Chandrakanti Gopi, an expansion of Srimati Radharani's effulgence, and Purnananda, an expansion of Lord Balaram's dear girlfriend. Oh, this is something in it. Okay, the other person that disappeared today was Srinivas Acharya. He was a disciple of one of the 6 Goswami. No, there, one of the 6 there. Jiva Goswami, to be exact. And he's responsible for the conversion of Maharaj Bir Hambir to Vaishnavism. And he's considered a Parshada, having an identical body of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You see, it is understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when before he left this world, he left 2 expansions, okay, to carry on the Hare Krishna movement. One expansion was the 6 Goswamis, okay. So, and what were the 6 Goswamis left to do? What, wander around in their gamshas? No, they were actually entrusted to discover Vrindavan, okay, because Vrindavan was not what we know today. It was thanks to them we now can see a real Vrindavan in India. So, and then they were empowered to establish worship of the Lord's deity, and give bhakti granta, the holy scriptures, to protect the bhakti path. Oh, thank you. I was going to keep that. Now, the second group expansion of Chaitanya Prabhu was this individual, Srinivas Acharya, together with a very famous person, which is, if you see between the 6 Goswami and Jagannath Das Babaji, there are three personalities. The first one is Vishwanatha Chakravarti, then Narottama Das, and that Narottama Das, Srinivas Acharya, and Shyamananda Prabhu were considered the second expansion of Lord Chaitanya, and their responsibility was to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya throughout India, and this is where they form the great spiritual Sankirtan party, okay, to go around and spread the news. Okay, that's all I've got to say. If anybody else have any questions or comments? No? Great. Gantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Thank you.